Hey, it's Fitz. Thanks for checking out the ROC Radio Podcast. Quick plug about ROCVOX recording and production. We just did a whole bunch of audiobooks. Self-published authors are our new best friends. If you're a self-published author and would like to find out how you can make your publication an audiobook, please feel free to reach out. There's information on our website, rocvox.com, or you can send me an email, fitz@rocvox.com. Of course, we're open for all other types of productions, podcasts for individuals and organizations, voiceovers, voiceover demos, video production, you name it, we can do it. And if we can't do it, we know someone who can, but we can probably do it. Anyway, check out the website or follow us on social media. You can even book a free coffee talk consultation with me to discover how ROCVOX can help you achieve your goals. ROCVOX.com.
Round, 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 go the records.
Just over a week ago, a new crime-fighting tool arrived in Rochester, the Upstate Crusader. The museum has been housed at the Geneseo Airport since its creation in the early 1980s. Joe Lomonaco, News Radio 1180 WHAM.
WSAY Radio 1370. Maureen McGovern. WVOR FM 100 plays 50.
And we're back with the Rochester ROC Radio Podcast, the history of radio, all of the talents that you've heard on the air for years and years and years. And today, the voice of Rochester, Joe Lomonaco.
I don't know if I can really live up to that, by the way. But,
you are,
but thanks.
Should I say the unofficial
Thank
voice
you.
of
I will
Rochester?
take that because that gives you little responsibility. Like you don't have to carry any burden on your shoulders
exactly.
if you're the unofficial. You know, like if somebody gives you that title, then you really do have to uphold a certain standard, which I don't want to.
So let's see. We go to Jiva. We hear you introducing the shows. We go to the
Rochester Broadway Theatre, the Auditorium Theatre.
The
so I'm the one that's going
Theater.
to tell you where the fire exits are and to recycle your program. And then I will sell you any variety of product and or service because I'm a whore, dirty whore,
filthy,
dirty whore, and I will be glad to sell you any kind of product you want. And through iHeart. You'll hear me pretty much everywhere from California to New York, all over the place. As a matter of fact, I just got through doing a project for an ED clinic nationwide. ED
lovely!
Clinic, a peak performance for men. 37 states will have to listen to me do that for the next 3 months. So yeah, it's unavoidable.
So. We should have talked about this before we started rolling. Is there anything, and I can cut this out, is there anything that you choose not to talk about? Like
absolutely not.
The current your current employer or anything like that?
No, I'm good. I'm good on all that. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'll dish whatever you want to know.
So what we've been talking about here is just, the history of radio in Rochester specifically, but as an industry overall, and how many things have changed, and from the time that you got into the biz until now, everything. Besides everything.
Yeah, besides everything. I mean, we can talk specific. I got in 1990, so that was like first real job. So I was still in college when I got that, and then started sort of officially in Rochester in 93. So everything, and we're not just talking technology, like everything has changed. Ownership changed.
Oh, yeah.
Programming style changed. There used to be a view of the world where like radio was in the center of it. And our audience was just, and everything that we did was kind of surrounded around it. Now that whole dynamic has changed.
Content is in the center.
Content, yes.
I saw that too.
The big
I saw
C.
that post.
I saw that. And I'm like, that makes a whole lot of sense. Content's in the middle, and we're just part of how that content gets out. Some people who are in the industry and former to the industry are okay with that model, and some people are not okay with that model. There are some people still trying to do it sort of the old school way, and they're, with moderate degrees of success they may be having. But I think I like that idea that we're part of something, but it's different, and I'm okay with that.
I did want to talk about when you first. So you said you got in. You were in college when you got your first job?
I was in college, 1990. The story on that is my dentist was friends with a dentist who owned a radio station. Well, they did. They did. So my dentist, Dr. Arnie Lowe, knew Dr. Ken Titus, and Titus bought WINR 680 in Binghamton. Okay, so he wanted to own a radio station. For some reason, this guy wanted to have a radio station. So my dentist convinced this dentist to give me a summer job. So I'm 20 years old, and I'm playing Bing Crosby records and, like Glenn Miller, like stuff my grandparents would listen to. And they loved it because there's all their grandkids on the station that we listened to. So the station was on the top of a hill above the Broome Psychiatric Center. So it was a ranch-style home with a 5,000-watt transmitter in what was probably a bedroom, and the towers are right out the back. And so it was my job to play music and run Yankee games and things like that. Back at a time when on AM radio, you were a full-service station. So we had a time into news at the top of the hour. We played music, but we had news, and we did Yankee games and things like that. So that was the first gig for 3 months. And I think the other reason, too, is the dentist, too, and the program director at the time, he was leaving to go start another FM in Binghamton.
I thought maybe you were going to say it was the hygienist was also the program
No. Brilliant guy. His name is Ray Diorio. He passed away a number of years ago, and Ray was the PD at the time, and he was going to start what is now WMXW in Binghamton. They were just signing on, and he was going to go do PD and do middays. So he's like, whoever works here, I don't care. give the kid a job. It doesn't matter. So that was the first real gig, and then from there, 1993 is when I got out of Geneseo, where I went to school. I graduated on a Saturday. I started work the following Sunday morning at 6 a.m. at WYSL in Avon. Bob Savage hired me down there, and I've been fortunately employed doing what I wanted to do, is to be in the industry ever since. So it's been officially like 27 years-ish, 28 years.
So when your dentist was convincing the other dentist, was it because you got to listen to this kid's voice?
No, he was like, I'm gonna call in a favor. Basically, that's it,
But I mean, had you obviously had expressed?
I had an interest in, and I'd already been in.
You were in the broadcasting?
my first year and a half of college. So I was already in the track. I knew this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And the industry was still one of those things within sort of a communications department. It's kind of, you have 3 tracks. You're either going to be the audio person, which would more than likely wind you up in radio or broadcast. You were the video person that was going to take you to TV, or you were the print journalism person. And there was really 3 parts of that. I cannot speak to what academia does now, but those, if you got into one of those tracks, then you found your way to the campus radio station. So I had already started to do some stuff. So I had what passed for a demo, and they said, look, he can't screw this up. Basically is he can't screw this up if we're going to put him on the air on a Saturday afternoon from like 2 to 7 or from 7 to 1, because the transmitter, we actually shut the transmitter off at night. So we were on from 6 in the morning till 1 in the morning, and then we shut the transmitter off from 1 to 6. So they figured I would just be a person in the building, and they needed that. So, because you have to have somebody there to run it and to sign on the transmitter logs and everything else. So they said, all right. If anything really goes wrong, the chief engineer is only 5 minutes away. We can.
How jazzed were you about it, though? You must have been pretty stoked.
Loved it. I mean, because I wanted to do that which I heard other people do. And I was one of those kids where, when I heard the radio, it spoke to me in a very specific way, I guess. It was, these guys are larger than life. I love what they're doing. I don't know how they do it, but I'm going to try to reverse engineer it and do it myself. So basically, I wound up just sort of like copying things that they had done stylistically. No one ever taught me, this is how you do it. Here's how you set it up. Here's, because we didn't know about it. The internet didn't exist. No research, nothing. You just, if you knew a little bit about the artists, it was all up in your head.
Yeah.
That was it. So So knowing that that's what I wanted to do is to be like those guys, and then I got a chance to do it, and to know that like my family could hear it, especially my grandparents, because they were just thrilled. They just told all their friends about it. So that's like the first fan club.
So you're from down in Binghamton?
By upbringing, yes. By birth, no. Born here in Rochester, and then family lived down there, so it was easier for mom and dad to kind of relocate there because they had childcare kind of built in, but it was also good because I got to grow up around 2 sets of grandparents, which was very nice. So spent my childhood there, came back to the area again. Geneseo, went to school there, and been around ever since. So I got out in '93, and I've been here ever since.
Who was one of the jocks or one of the personalities that you like to emulate?
Oh
back in
gosh,
the day?
There's a couple like. There's a station it's still on the air. It's WMBF 1290, and that was kind of like the heritage station. And back in those days, talk didn't exist, so it was kind of a hybrid between sort of a talk station and a music station, even on the AM side. And there are guys like John Leslie, Ted Baer, Double D, Don Daniels, Bill Flynn. He did the Polka Show, but he had a great sense about him. And news guys, like Bob Joseph and Bernie Fiani and people that did that stuff locally. And then I started doing news in 93, 94, and I was copying Christopher Glenn from CBS. There was a guy that I listened to as a kid. I saw him on CBS Newsbreak in cartoons on Saturday mornings on CBS television. It was him, and he had a great style and a great voice. So I'm like, I'm just gonna pretend to be him. So that's how it started. It's emulating other people until you eventually get to a point where you start figuring out this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And then you kind of you gravitate over to something that becomes your style. Yeah. And that's it took quite a while. I don't think I'm really there yet, but I've got something. That's
we're always learning.
It's a reasonable facsimile of my own style.
But that's how a lot of the greats in any profession, in any industry, really got going. Think of the great musicians. I used to play Elvis Presley songs, all day long, and I knew them all back and forth, and then finally they broke out and started doing their own thing.
Because that's for us, there's a whole lot of nobody really gives you the inside track on it. Like even if you study it, like if you have the benefit of taking coursework in it, if that's how you get in college or what have you, they don't really give you the sense of, okay, here is in a macro sense what you're doing. Like here's a big picture view of what this role you play in this industry, in this medium, is connecting to an audience you can't see. They don't really explain that to you in any large scale way. They kind of put you down behind the microphone and figure like, well, you will figure it out.
Yeah.
And for many of us, I don't know if that was the same for you, but you start doing it because you heard other people do it, and then in your brain, you're, like I said, reverse engineering it to try to figure out, okay, well, here's how I can do it.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I think a lot of us start out, I go back and listen to old stuff and I cringe. It's like, oh God, really? No. What were you thinking? But with almost 30 years of hindsight on it, you can go back and look and say, no, you really didn't figure that out the way you thought you did. But I was also the kid with the tape recorder, making radio shows for fun. That's
So you did that when you were younger?
Exactly.
I did that too. WFTZ Fits Radio.
That's brilliant. But that's the thing, if you're really into it, if you were ever someone who really and we connected with audio in a way that maybe other people didn't.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a term for it. Growing up in the 70s, we didn't have a name for that other than you were a DJ or, because that was it. It was only one way. These things did not exist. Even in the 80s in college, and early 90s, it didn't exist. It hadn't really started off like I tell friends of mine now that we used to hang out in the theater department, just try to make each other laugh. If podcasting had existed then, that's what we would have been doing all the time. We would have figured out a way to do that, but there still was only that one path forward there. So, I was fascinated with vinyl records and, the sound of my own voice and trying to emulate the voices on Saturday morning cartoons and things like that. It's just trying to, it's just being connected to sound is, I think, what my core was. And then radio was the way to be involved with sound and have that be what I do all the time.
I would guess that you're a big fan of like the old school radio plays
Love 'em.
and the radio productions
Love
and
'em.
stuff. Theater
Yep.
of the Mind.
Absolutely.
Those are the best. Those are the absolute best.
Yeah, all of that stuff, and how in fact, I'm working on a project right now. Actually, our station WHAM is 100 years old in 2022.
Wow!
So I've been going back through a lot of old archive stuff. That's unfortunately a lot of it doesn't exist, but there's still a fair amount of it. And when you listen to how they put it together, and knowing what we know now about how many people it took to actually pull that off, to do a show with a script and a sound design guy and a full orchestra. It took like 30, 40 people to put these things
and
together.
weren't those live?
And
at
they
the
were
time?
and they were live. And if they weren't, you got one shot at it.
Right.
So because they were put onto probably transcription disc and then sent, like mailed somewhere or sent somewhere if they needed to be rebroadcast. So
Courier.
You have one shot to get this right, mistakes and all.
Yeah.
And you kind of let it all go. And the fact that they were doing this, in some cases, they were doing multiple shows a week. They've keep writing and writing and writing and writing. If they're doing game shows and things like that, there's just so much to do, and how much it took to put that all together it's a fascinating part of the history. The fact that that we have a lot of technology at our disposal, which is great, but they had a lot of people and minds and creative energy all in the room at the same time.
Yeah, I find that's it's not an even trade.
No.
We have all the technology, like you said, all these things that we can do, but there's nothing like having a room full of people with 5 to 10 different opinions or ideas about how it's going to be,
and all working towards that goal, knowing how they're all there because they love doing this thing. And that's why I love surrounding myself with people that are like that you have a shorthand with them. They understand things maybe a little bit differently. And when you start putting that level of talent all together, the outcome is just quite remarkable. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have great outcomes with one person in a room who can really connect with somebody they can't see through a microphone.
Sure.
That's a great talent to have. I love the collaborative part of it, to be able to say, I'm going to contribute one bit, and then you're going to add to it, and you're going to add to it. And when we come out the other side, what you're going to see in the room and what you're going to hear outside of it is going to be phenomenally better and different than you could have ever pictured it in your mind's eye. And that's what I think, unfortunately, we lack now as the industry stands today, just from a sheer business standpoint. But it's where podcasters have picked up the slack on it,
right?
And they're out there hustling like the good old fashioned days of the early part of the industry.
Yeah, that's true.
They're out there beating the pavement. I mean, you financed a movie, for heaven's sake. You know exactly. you know what this is like. You have to go out and sell the idea, and that's exactly what they're doing. We're seeing a lot more scripted stuff come out, a lot more stuff that's not just people in a room talking about crime. There's a lot of that. But there's a whole lot more that's coming out that's specifically designed to be an audio experience, the way those shows of the 30s and 40s were.
We're doing one here.
Ooh,
yeah, we are. It's called The Green Dick. Look for it on. There's one episode out. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform.
All right.
And actually, you're invited to come and do a character if
sweet.
you'd like.
I'd love to. Absolutely.
So we have. Not to get too much into it, but we have this radio play that we're doing, and then we're shooting a web series behind it that's sort of like the behind the scenes of the making of the podcast radio show. Mm-hmm. But all the people are playing actors. So when you come in to do the voice, you're not going to be Joe Lomonaco doing the voice. You're going to be an actor named this doing
coming
the
in
voice.
to do it.
And then we let the actors outside of recording the audio, we let them act out, improv some scenes. And then that's going to be a companion web series that's going to be on. It runs like 15 minutes long. Or something.
Cool.
Yeah, it's.
I love that. I love the idea. It's very ambitious.
Yes, it is.
Incredibly ambitious.
But it's small cast. So, and it's exactly what you've been talking about, because we're sitting around going, we really want to get back to that fun, exciting, creative juices flowing type of production that has kind of slipped away. There's not really very many outlets or projects or anything that you can do.
Yeah.
You know, and especially in radio, when was the last time that you did one of those, great bits that you might be doing them more than most other people, but still.
Well, the focus I've had for the last 20 years has been as a commercial production director.
Right.
So it's
but even so,
very narrow focused.
But you can still, every once in a while, you have that project where it's like you need extra voices and you need people to act out a scene or something.
Yeah.
And it's
Absolutely. It's you do get those opportunities. They're a bit more few and far between.
Yeah.
And one of the upsides to how the business model works is that we can bring in resources from a lot of different places all across the country. That's what iHeart does. That's their model.
Right.
We use people from all walks and all station groups to help us create the content that we need for wherever it needs to go. That's the upside. You got a lot of choices. The downside to it is that I like to be a director in that, and you don't get that luxury. So I have to be real careful about who I pick, because they've got to be able to get inside my head, understand what I'm trying to achieve with whatever's on the page, especially if I wrote and written it, and then be able to give that back to me so that I can take it and it fits seamlessly into the overall picture. So yeah, it's good to have the crayons in the crayon box, but sometimes they color outside the lines, and then you're no better off. You don't have the end result, or you kind of got the end result, but it's like, I still hear it better. Can't I just take what's in my head and put that out there, because that would be so much better than what I actually have. So it's good to have. I like people all together, because it enhances everyone to be able to see each other, just make eye contact. A little gesture can impact how somebody says something and how somebody responds to it.
Absolutely.
So it's great to have those people. It's a luxury that we don't often get anymore.
Thinking back to your early career, can you remember the first time, whatever it was that you were doing in the job, where it clicked and you're like, holy crap, this is incredible. This is amazing.
Oh man.
Be it meeting a famous person or a project or a location that you were at, or, a remote or anything like that.
I think
where it was like, this is radio.
Yeah. You know what? I think it happened fairly recently. And I'm not saying the stuff that I had done to that point, and this was like, I think 2019 when we did it, was not good, or I treated it as disposable, but it is in a lot of ways disposable. It serves a purpose and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with news content. It's the same thing with commercial content, because you're always updating, you're always changing, you're always moving. But we do this, or had pre-pandemic, is a live Christmas show from the Eastman Theatre, from the George Eastman House. And I've been talking for years. I gotta write something. I gotta do a little skit or something like that includes as many people from staff as we can. And I just kept never doing it. 2019, I said, okay, I'm going to steal an idea. And the idea is Mark Cuddy, who's the now going to be retiring artistic director for Jiva Theater Center, does this thing called Summer Curtain Call every year. Yeah. It's their big fundraiser. Well, what Mark does is that he writes kind of a musical variety show based on the people who are brought in to be the VIP cast. So there's a lot of inside jokes, a lot of people playing characters, but they're kind of themselves. And it usually has to do with some show that they're doing. So it's kind of loosely based on some whatever happens to be on stage. So I said, okay, I'm going to do Mark Cuddy's idea, and I'm going to make a Scooby-Doo mystery. And everybody plays a part. So Bill Moran is Fred, and Paulie Guglielmo was Shaggy, and John DiTullio was Scooby, and Alexa Olson was Daphne, and I was Velma.
Nice.
And
good casting.
Yeah, it was good. So we did this it was 5 or 6 minutes, four parts, and we did it live on stage as they would have done something similar back in the good old days. And we do it without rehearsal, and
that's like,
and you're flying by the seat of your pants, and cues are getting missed and things are getting screwed up, but it was still good.
Yeah.
It was still really good. And the audience really engaged in it in a way that I didn't anticipate them engaging with it. So it's like, if I look at something over the last, I can come back to that and say, yeah, that one was good. But most of the rest of it, I'm far too harsh. And I'm like, it's all right.
You're your own worst critic, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's why I don't listen. I don't listen to most things that I do. I do them, I put them away, and it's gone. It's out of my head, and I'm moving on to the next thing because I don't want to sit there and dwell on it, I guess.
Yeah.
Or I want to learn to get better at it or something like that. And I think the other thing that was more recent, one of the first stories I ever remember covering was the Kaylee Polton disappearance from years ago. A little girl in East Rochester, abducted and subsequently murdered. We didn't know this by someone who lived close by, and this was a case of a missing kid that captivated this community.
Yeah,
and it was one of the first stories I remember covering. When I'm barely at Wham, and they put the tape recorder in my hands and say, okay, where are you going out to cover it? I got the call. I was on call that night when they found the body. So it's like midnight, and I'm standing out there by what was Nortel over on Humboldt Street, because that's where they found the body in a tank. And so it's like, okay, well, you're in this now. So it's going to be like, okay, well, I got CBS News calling from New York. I've got all these people who want to talk to me about this story.
Yeah.
And kind of just being juiced up about it. And like, I'm going for 36, 48 hours straight just covering this story. And I did a lot of it by myself until we got back into, the beginning of the week to get more people on it, and I could pass the baton off to them. So I'll always remember that case and that story and how it played out.
Yeah, and for a lot of reasons, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where you really get involved in not only the story, but how you were going to tell the story. And in 1994, I think it was 94, 95, I'm kind of fuzzy on the years, but, in order to do it, you had a tape deck and a mic and a cell phone with a bag and a battery. And somebody had to be on the other end to receive all that. And if you were working alone, which is what I did, you have to go out, cover everything, go back. You're on a cassette, you cut up all that sound, you get everything ready, you're writing all the stories, you're sending it everywhere it has to go, and you're kind of a one-man show, the way a lot of TV people are.
Yeah.
These days, they've got to shoot it, they got to edit it, they got to do everything themselves. So without the technology that we have to be able to get, like you can't immediately tweet stuff out, you can't immediately Facebook stuff out, you're not constantly, getting content back out to your audience. It was get it all, make sure you're paying attention because you got one shot to get this right.
Yeah.
And then you got to go back and then put everything together again.
Yeah, and then when you get it wrong, if you get it wrong.
Yeah, you hope you don't.
Yeah.
You hope you don't get it wrong. And I don't know whether I've ever had a issue a retraction on anything. I don't think I have.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that you would.
I don't think so. I leave that to people like Lonsberry. They're the ones those guys like Lonsberry and Weeze and people that do like the opinion sort of stuff, they're the ones that have to worry about that sort of stuff. Not us news people. We don't have to worry about that. We just do the story and collect the award.
Right.
Thank you. I'll take that hardware. I appreciate that.
So you were talking about when you were a kid, you were, emulating the cartoon voices and things like that. Was Mel Blanc like one of your heroes like me?
Yeah, he's always going to be the angel on the top of the Christmas tree.
Right.
There is nobody who is as versatile as it. Now, granted, there are a lot of people working today that are very versatile, that do a lot of stuff. There's people like, Rob Paulson and Billy West and Maurice LaMarche and guys that are out there doing a lot of voices on a lot of shows because they always wind up getting the jobs.
Maurice LaMarche has been around for
He's been around
years.
for I remember watching him
on the HBO
on the Rich Little specials.
Yeah.
And I actually Facebook messaged him. I said I think it was with a friend request that I sent him years ago. I said, no, I'm not a friend, but I am a fan. And I remember watching you do Rod Serling on the Rich Little special and then again on the Facts of Life.
Yeah.
Because he did that. He was a stand-up back in the early day.
Yeah, on the Rodney Dangerfield young comedian
special. Yeah, I used to love that stuff. So these guys are now sort of, the ones who are doing an awful lot of stuff that's, that you hear. But Mel did it at a time, like when you think of just the variety of characters that are part of the pantheon of pop culture.
Yeah.
You know, that they're a reference point for which other people do what they do. And to think that, you know, maybe if you're a voice person doing animation, you get one iconic character, maybe two. This guy is Bugs and Daffy and Marvin the Martian and Pepe Le Pew and Foghorn Leghorn and Yosemite Sam.
Right.
And it's all the same, and Tweety and Sylvester, and it's all the same guy.
Yeah.
And the fact that they, you know, and Porky Pig too, and the fact that, you know, the only thing that they did to change his voice on Tweety is to pitch up the reel-to-reel tape. That's it. Yeah. He recorded it at normal speed, and they pitched it up. That's the only effect they put on any of his voice. The rest of it is just performance that this guy could pull off. So I would listen to that, and knowing nothing about how to do it, you try to reverse engineer it. How do you make your voice sound like that? And you can't, but if you're fortunate enough, you might hit on something that is uniquely yours, and then you can take that and start building on that, which is probably where a lot of guys that do this now kind of started off. It's like, okay, well, I'm trying to do this character, but I missed it, but I hit something that was very interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with this, and I'm going to keep this character and see where it goes from here.
And locally, you're famous for your appearance on Family Guy.
Yeah,
the Weenie in the Butt.
That's it. I checked animation off my list of
but
things.
That's fantastic. It's
that
one
I wanted
of my
to do with my
goals,
life.
too. It's one of my longtime dreams to do something like that. And so, how was it? You interviewed Seth MacFarlane, and you kind of busted his chops about being
basically, yes. Basically,
awesome.
it was talk your way into it. As the story goes, the show I was doing on the now defunct The Nerve at 95.1 FM. So we did a Saturday show because we had Howard Stern on during the week. So we needed to do something for some client service on the weekend. We did a 6-hour Saturday morning show, and I was in charge of getting guests, and I got McFarland on doing a press tour for Fox. And I had told Eric Anderson, E-Man, the host of the show, that I got to ask him. I just want to do one voice. That's it. They don't even have to pay me because I have no idea how this all works, no idea how the union is or any of this other stuff. And so, you know, we do the interview, we get to the end, and of course I've chickened out by this point. I'm just like, I can't do it. I can't ask him. But never missing an opportunity to see me squirm, E-Man decides that he's going to bring it up.
Thank you, E-Man.
McFarlane says, yeah, sure. I think we can come up with something. I think we can do something. Then we finish up the interview, and he's like, well, guys, I just want to let you know we got canceled. So we're not coming back. This was in 1999.
Right.
So it's like, guys, we're not coming back. But he gave me his phone number because this is pre-famous person, Seth MacFarlane. Okay. He's just a couple of years out of Hanna-Barbera. He drew the pilot himself, on his kitchen table, and it's a totally different show now than it was back then. But he was also a different person and much more accessible. So every couple of months, I just call him up, say, "Hey, you got anything you want to plug?" And fast forward to 2004, and there's a change in management at Fox Television and the animation division. The shows are in reruns on Cartoon Network, and they're doing really well up against like Letterman and Leno. And there's a decision to put the show back in production. He calls me and says, "I promised you that you could do something."
That's amazing.
And they wrote the DJ character specifically for me to do. And from what I've been able to gather, Seth MacFarlane is a person that remembers the promises that he makes, and he honors those.
Wow. How rare is that?
Incredibly rare.
Amazing.
But that just seems to me, from what I've heard and read from multiple sources, is that that's just the kind of person he is. He is grateful for those who have been there to support him doing what he did. And so if he makes a promise, he's going to be good on it. So they hired me to do it. And the best part about that is that every time they put the character back in a show, they had to hire me because they are obligated to keep the same voice actor throughout everything. That's part of the union rule. So, but I didn't have to join the union to do it. So I worked 4 times, 4 episodes. One episode, Hannah Banana, the part got cut for time. So the DJs were supposed to be in that episode, but the scene got cut because the script was too long. So Mother Tucker is the first one. Stewie goes for a drive or takes a ride or something like that, and Roads to Vegas are the 3 episodes that I wound up getting in. Yep. And every few months I get a lovely little like $10 residual check from the Screen Actors Guild via what is now Walt Disney Pictures, because they bought out 20th Century Fox. Yeah. So yeah, and I don't even put it in an ATM. I gleefully walk it to the counter at the yes, and I pass it across, and I and very just very casually it's like, oh yeah, there's Mickey Mouse up there. Yeah, residuals. I was on a television show. Hope your life's going better. But I'm not that smug. Most of the time. But it's a very small check, and I will continue to get them in perpetuity. And now that there's more cable networks out there, they're running the shows more, so they've kind of gone up to like $15 a year. Thank you, Freeform.
That's brilliant, though.
Yeah. So that was it. So you take that thing. And that's an interesting flip around, to be the kid who sat at home in his pajamas with a bowl of cereal and watched Warner Brothers and stuff that I really loved, and so like I want to do that. To have been able to have gotten that opportunity is an incredible gift for which I will always be grateful.
Sure.
To know, because I do, how incredibly difficult it is to audition your way in to be able to get something like that. It is incredibly challenging. And those people who do it, you also have to remember, they are actors. That's what they do. They're not just people who make funny voices or something like that. That's part of it, but it's a very small part. It's all of the other training that they've had, all the other work that they've put in, and that's what makes them great. They were very nice to let some novice come in and be on a network program. That's a rarity, but that's also what you can do when you kind of get in with the guy who creates it,
right?
He can kind of call any shot he wants.
Exactly. I mean, so what did they say? Luck is doesn't exist. It's preparation versus preparation plus opportunity. When opportunity meets preparation, or something like that.
I'd agree with that. You have to have a certain skill set to be able to say, look, I can apply this here. Yeah. And it's not just a question of, kind of being, like in the right place at the right time. It's like, look, I have a skill set. I think this skill set could service something you're doing. If that opportunity exists, I would like the opportunity to be in the conversation. And, at least in this case, fortunately, it was we're just going to give this to you. And I'm like, and it could very well have not happened. Seth MacFarlane was supposed to be on the plane that took off from Boston that crashed on 9/11.
Yeah.
He got drunk the night before. So thank you, Jack Daniels. You kept alive this guy. So it very well could not have happened. So a lot of things had to all fall into place that were completely beyond my control to be able to actually get to that point.
So now that we're in where we are with the industry and everything, and then, what the pandemic had sort of maybe helped along, what do you think? What do you think's in the future of radio? Do you think it's in trouble? Do you think it's just evolving? What do you see?
I think it's evolving. And I kind of, because it's going to sound like I'm slapping on people, but I'm really not. Those people who are no longer in the business, I think, kind of crap on it for whatever reason, because their path in it didn't quite go the way they thought it was going to go. It turned into something they really weren't happy with or didn't want to be involved with or something like that. And they, I believe, just want it to be what it was. And it's not. It can't be. It's not sustainable. Going back to what we talked about earlier, radio's not in the center of that content universe. We're a spoke in the wheel, but the hub is different now,
right.
and it changed. Did it change for the better? In some cases, yes. I love having more colors in my crayon box to be able to do things for any number of places in service of a client's needs, not my needs, of a client's needs. Do I wish there were more human beings able to do it for the same reason of having more creative minds in the room at the same time in your physical location? Yeah, I wish we could have that too. I also understand that it costs a lot of money to run this industry because there's so many layers to it. There's so much tech and hardware and lights and air conditioning for transmitter sites and towers and all these little things that you don't necessarily think about. You only think about, well, it's just salaries of the people that are there.
There's a lot of operating.
There's so much else there. And I think there's still legs to the industry if it just stays in the lane that it needs to be in. It can't be the center of the universe anymore. If it stays in its lane and it doesn't get too lean. Right now we're kind of teetering, I think, on that edge of too lean. If we kind of hold right here and kind of get through the next couple of years, I think we really need to get to like 2024, 2025, really, to kind of recover from where we've been over the last 18 to 19 months. If we can get to that point and we're still able to be nimbly moving around and adjusting how we do what we do and how we're I hate to say it, engaging with an audience, but it's true. I think there is some viability. I want to see it go another 20 because I got an end game in mind. I'd like to work till I'm 70. I really would like to do that. And I know a lot of people may have had a similar end game in mind to mine, and they didn't get to live it out. And I understand that part of it, and what it would feel like if I got to a point where I'm like, yeah, I'm halfway there, 10 more years. Oh, by the way, there's the door. Yeah. And it could happen to me. I've been fortunate enough where it hasn't happened, but it could tomorrow. I don't really know. But so far, there's still a place for people who do what I do. It's not making as much and reaching as many people, but it's still viable in a lot of places. And as long as we remember what we're there for, we're not there to be the center of attention. We're there to be part of holding attention to something greater than us. So in our case, it's iHeart's in the center and everything that we do. All the podcasts we distribute on the app, all the events that we do, everything that we do to engage with an audience, we service that. We don't service ourselves. And if we remember that, then it makes the game change. It's a change in how you mentally approach the game, I think. And that for some of us is really easy to understand, and for some people it's not so easy to understand.
Yeah. Do you think that because of this new way that things are going, this new route, we've lost the community aspect, the personal locality, the localness of radio?
We haven't in some ways because we still have people in studios. We still have we's.
Industry-wide,
yeah. But I don't know what other people do per se, but yeah. I know for us, we still have those abilities to be community touch tones.
Yeah.
And we can't. We still have Lonsberry and we have DeTulio Moran and we have Earl David Reed and we have Pete Kennedy and for other people that are doing it, like Dino Kay's still out there, like everywhere. He's ingrained in this community.
Coming up on the ROC Radio Podcast.
Yeah, very good. And like Tony Infantino is out there and Scott Spizzano and Sandy. But all of these people are still here. They're still
and God bless
engaging with the community. A lot of places don't have that because they're too small. They don't have the ability to do that because it doesn't make sense unless somebody's basically deciding to work for free.
So you think that Rochester is right in the right size?
We're on a line though.
Yeah,
we're a small medium market.
Yeah,
I quite honestly, we really should be classified as small. We're a small market. We've been losing market size steadily since I got into the industry. So we're just about at a place where it's still okay. But we also see and this is happening in a lot of different industries, it is a workforce that is continuing to age out. And it's not being replaced on a local level by people that do the same kinds of things. Weeze is in his 70s. Bob's in his 60s. Spizzano's got to be getting up there. Kennedy's got to be getting up there. These guys are all going to hit retirement age.
I know for a fact that Scott Spezzano was 117 years old.
And he looks brilliant.
Doesn't he look great?
Because he eats children. And that's a lie. So far as you know. So, but all of these guys are going to get to a point where their careers are going to come to an end within a few years of each other.
Yep.
And then there will be a dearth of talent here because there is no one that I can see that is waiting in the wings that can step into that role and be that personality. These talent that are there came up at a time when it was the only game in town, and they transitioned the only game in town into one of the games in town, but they're still in town. Eventually they're going to come to a point where they're going to go out to pasture. It happens. And the next thing that comes in is, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. And it's not just us. It's what happens with the Entercom stations, what happens with the Stevens stations. There's nothing there. It all becomes syndicated. It starts off with brand new people, and we start the process all over again. Is that even viable to start the process of building? And that's a long build. You know, are they going to invest 10 years in a talent? Probably not. I would doubt it. But is someone out there that can step into those roles to continue that part of it? Or when that happens, do we pivot again and change again as to how we do what we do in Rochester, New York, just as one little market, which maybe bigger places are going to face too, but maybe they have more available talent to pick from, and someone is kind of a second banana that can kind of step into that premier slot and start being the person. But for here, the landscape, I think, is going to be dramatically different, probably starting in, 3 to 5 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there, you're going to start seeing people drop out, either because they have to or because they want to. And you're going to start seeing a shift, and I don't know where it's going to shift to.
Yeah. I tell you what, I was hoping to hang on to be waiting in the wings when all these guys and gals move on. But the pandemic really sort of forced my hand.
Yeah.
You know?
It did for a lot of people. I think it accelerated iHeart's plans. I definitely believe it accelerated their plans for the consolidation. They, especially in the production world, in my world, I think they had the idea of knowing that they were going to move to that model, but I think the pandemic accelerated that to probably by about a year, maybe a little more. But we've made the transition, and we've been able to really thrive within it and to be able to handle all of the work that's coming our way. So that a lot of people wound up getting in that position where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to retire early now. I wanted to do another 2 years, but I'm just not going to be able to hang on for another 2 years. But in some cases, I mean, like, look for you as an example, it didn't force your hand, but it accelerated your hand to this, which you knew you were going to be spending more time with anyways. I mean, I think at this point, you're probably busier now than you have been, like, ever.
Yeah.
It seems to me that it was the right time to go so that you could be primed and ready for when things started to, when the faucet turned on and things started to come back again. And you're just like, okay, well, we're ready.
Yeah.
Let's go. Bookings are happening right now. Let's go. Let's fill up this calendar. And
a lot of spots open, by the way. If you want to fill up the calendar.
Yeah. You can still get your slot now. But it happened it happened for a lot of people in a lot of different ways.
Sure.
It just said, look, it's the if not now when mentality, and sometimes the if not now when is not something you can do for yourself. Somebody or something has to kind of force your hand so that it takes an alternative away.
Yep.
And then gets you to be like, okay, well, now I have to go. Now I have to do this. And because there's no alternative to it. So, and for some people, I think it really was for the better. It moved them into a position where they didn't trust themselves that they could thrive or they could do it, and they had to figure it out trial by fire. And then they're like, oh, it can work. Now I've got the confidence to keep building off that.
It's tough when you love so much, when you love that industry, when you love being on live radio, that whole process, the adrenaline you get, even if I was only doing short, ridiculous breaks that, it was still fun. It was still fun to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of it makes me sad a little bit.
Yeah.
Cause I would really love the chance to jump in and do some more live radio. If that ever, popped up again,
it very well may.
It might,
I can't tell. Again, goes back to when this population starts to age out. Okay, well, that's just in front of the curtain. Now, behind the curtain, what's going on and where are the decisions being made?
Right.
We know that some are made locally, but some are not.
Yep.
And we understand that that's how the game is played. So if the people behind still have some legs to them, then if they know you, then maybe they come in and say, like, hey, I know you've got this other thing going, but would you be interested in coming and doing something?
Right.
Because we only need this for 6 months until we can figure out what to do. And then maybe 6 months turns into 12 and 12 turns into 24.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it could very well, go something along those lines. You'll always have the connection to it. You'll always have the connection to what got you there in the first place. And, and I know what connected me to the sounds that I was hearing. And now I'm fortunate I get to make those sounds. If I don't get to keep doing it in a live studio setting, I'm still okay with that. I could give that up tomorrow and I'd be fine because I can still do something, because the content creation in a small form in commercial work satisfies that part of it. For me. For me, the end of the day to do the news from 5 to 6 weeknights is, sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, I'm looking forward to this. And sometimes it's like, can I just go home? I don't want to read about these stories anymore. I'm tired of these stories.
Yeah.
I'm tired of telling these stories. But and then you get into it and it's like, okay, well, shake off that bad feeling you had today or whatever got you there. And now you're just in the moment. And then the next thing you know, it's 6 o'clock and you're done. And unplug your headphones, you put them back in the drawer, you lock them up, and you do the same thing all over again tomorrow.
Well, that's a great way to end it.
Yeah.
Joe Lomonaco, it's been just bags of fun.
Bags of fun. A large sack of chuckles.
Large sack of chuckles. I've honestly, I've been looking forward to sitting down with you and having a conversation for a long time. And you've been here and we've chatted here, and that kind of thing. But
yes, need to have your demo done? Come to Rockbox Studios. I had my demo done here. It was great.
I'm going to just cut that out and use that if you don't mind.
That's fine, no problem.
Well, I'm sure you're going to be here for a long time more, and your end game is going to be fulfilled as you see it.
Yeah.
Because everybody loves to hear your voice, right before a big show at the Auditorium Theatre and on the radio.
And welcome to Rochester's Auditorium Theatre.
That's it.
In case of a fire, run fast.
Thanks so much for hanging out.
Thanks for having me, Fitz.